So I have done this before, but it was very, very janky and ghetto. This one's going to be a little bit nicer on how you can do this, but still free if you got just basic power tools, so a grinder, your socket set to actually get your bypass valve off, or a circulating valve, whichever one you want to call it. And then the only other thing you really need is just a bit of scrap metal, just anything that's like somewhat thin sheet metal. Go cut up a thrown out microwave or something. I've got some scrap metal. Like, here's a microwave, you just cut out a little square here and then trace your thing on that. Ooh, everything is hot. So, you gotta locate your blow-off valve or circulating valve, or whatever you want to call it. Then, undo your bolts for it and get out the little gaskets that is in there. That one right there. Because what we're going to do, we're going to use our little piece of metal that we've cut off from whatever you want to use. That's going to sit on top, trace an outline, and then we're going to cut that so it's the same shape. You must have a turbo car, because the last time I did this thing, when I did the real janky version of it, I had people asking, why doesn't it work, or why can't I find a blow-off valve? If you don't have a turbo car, then you're not going to be able to do it. The next thing that you're probably going to need to do is have some sort of pod filter onto your car, some sort of aftermarket intake. The factory airbox is going to muffle all of that sounds that you're going to be getting anyway. So if you've got an aftermarket intake, you'll be sweet. As long as you've got a turbo car, you'll be sweet. There's one. There's two. Cool, everything's feeling pretty smooth, so that was ready to get chucked in. Bada bing, bada boom, there's our little block off plate. So before you chuck this in, you want to make sure that all your edges are nice and smooth, and particularly around the bolts, because otherwise this won't sit completely flat onto it, and you don't want to have any like sharp edges ruining your gasket either. So the order you want to do this, your gasket still goes to your intercooler or your piping, and then your flange or your block off plate goes between the gasket and your recirculating valve, blow-off valve, whatever you want to call it. And those holes should line perfectly up with the plate. Make sure we put it the right way around first, probably helps. Cool, we can start it up, make sure there's no leaks, and then we'll take it for a quick drive. This thing sounds so sick with this little flutter mod on there. So depending on what intake you're running, how your intake is set up, what your intake's made out of, if it's silicon, aluminium, stainless, it's all gonna change how that flutter sounds. And then even things like your intercooler, so how big your intercooler is, where your intercooler is placed, it's all gonna have an effect on how much flutter you get, how loud it is, the pitch of it is.